We give thanks to all the Orishas and all the ancestors that in this moment we stand here able to speak about the presence of the Yorubas in this country, Jamaica. And we ask them to make themselves present and bless everything that happens here today for everyone. Healing for everyone. Love for everyone. Success for everyone. Strength and power for everyone. We ask that wonderful things in every way for everyone, here and everywhere. Asheo, and so it is. Bye-bye. Blessing.
We thank Dr. Steins for that prayer. I'm really happy that there are so many students here. There are many aspects of Jamaican culture that has yet to make it to our school's curriculum. So I'm excited that these students are here to see and experience things that make our culture unique that have yet to make it to the curriculum. Now, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Georgette McGlashan Miller. She is our research fellow at the ACIJ to introduce our panelist and moderator this morning.
Good morning, everyone. In the interest of time, I am going to ask Ms. Stevenson if we could just get into the film right after I do the introduction, and then the panelists will take the seat after the film so they can view the film as well. So today, we have with us Dr. Steins, as you know, and Dr. Steins is a dancer, choreographer, actress, lecturer, administrator, author, and visionary. She is the creator of Lantec, a modern Caribbean dance technique, and she continues to have her impact on the direction and future of Caribbean dance. She has a long and varied performing history, which ranges from classical ballet to Yoruba Orisha. Dr. Stein's choreographic work is inspired by the virility of her island's culture and ancestry, the sensuality of its people, and the natural mystic in the air. Our next panelist is Professor Maureen Warner-Lewis. Professor Warner-Lewis is Professor Emerita of African Caribbean Languages and Orature in the Department of Literatures and English, University of the West Indies, MONA. She has written 6 books and several articles on the connections between Africa and the Caribbean in history, language, literature, and culture. Our next panelist will be Dr. Laura Tanner, and she you will also see. Dr. Tanner holds a BA in Comparative Literature and a minor in French from the University of California, Berkeley, an MA and a PhD in African Languages and Literature from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And in Jamaica, has served on the Council of the Institute of Jamaica, the Board of the Creative Production Training Center, CPTC, the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, who is hosting this event today, the King's House Foundation, National Museum of Jamaica, Alliance Francaise, hope I got that, and the American Friends of Jamaica. In 1914, she was awarded the Order of Distinction in the rank of Officer OD by the Governor General of Jamaica for her invaluable contribution to literature and culture. Finally, our moderator will be Dr. Lisa Tomlinson. This is Dr. Lisa Tomlinson. Is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, MONA, in the Department of Literatures in English. She teaches Caribbean and African diaspora film courses and world cinema. She is the author of The African Jamaican Aesthetic, Cultural Retention and Transformation Across Border, and also author of Una Marson from the Caribbean Biography series. Lisa is currently Deputy Festival Director for GATFest, the community-centered film festival hosted by the University of the West Indies. She is also the Chief Adjudicator for the JCDC FIWI Short Film and Creative Writing Competition. Her research interests includes film and visual culture, literary criticism, and Black popular culture. Please make them welcome after the film with a round of applause. Thank you.
All right, and this is the moment that everyone has been waiting for, our film, Etu and Nago, African Retentions in Jamaica. Please, everyone, pay keen attention and enjoy.
Everybody know most in the show, delle okeniro, 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 show.
Etu is for the sick. Etu is for wedding. Etu is for if you have a little problem, we help you. But most of all, Etu is for when somebody dead. Etu is how we honor the older heads, then we pass on. It taught we by we old grandparents we come from Africa.
While much has been written about the arrival of East Indian and Chinese indentured laborers in the British West Indies after the abolition of slavery, not much is recorded about the Africans who came as indentured laborers during the period 1841 to 1866. After abolishing slavery in their territories, the British set free the Africans on the slave ships they captured and returned them to Africa, or encouraged them to come to the West Indies as paid workers to fill the need for labor on the plantations. In Jamaica, because their numbers were limited and they were concentrated in a few areas, not much was known by the wider society about the introduction of these paid African workers and their customs until mid-20th century, when, after independence, the festival cultural movement brought to light groups whose ceremonies retain many significant features of their African origin. In Western Jamaica, there are two groups who identify themselves as Yoruba in origin. These are the Etu people of Hanover. And the Nago people of Westmoreland.
My mother no African?
Some African was living here. My grandparents was from African.
Oh, I'd say it. My grandfather, William Fraser, was an African.
No, not my mother and father. My old people will come from Africa.
All right.
And them me catch it from.
All right.
He come from Yoruba, come to Jamaica.
From Yoruba?
Come to Jamaica. And the mother born in Jamaica.
She tell you, your grandmother tell you that?
Say what?
So that's Yoruba she come from?
Yes.
What kind of lady she was?
She was a tall black woman. She come here with the core.
My grandmother had the core ranger. Right?
What is that?
My grandmother from Africa. She had the core ranger. She and my grandfather is from Africa.
What you call the core of our jaw?
They have a mark. It's a mark on the jaw. I don't remember where the grandfather have his mark, whether it was the jaw, yes or no, but the grandmother had a mark on her jaw.
This is the first one I catch from me old people.
Oh go, hallelujah. Ogo, 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 hallelujah. Ogo, Ogo.
Who are these people who identify themselves as Etu and Nago? The name Etu presents some problems for researchers.
They are a small ethnic remnant of the Yoruba presence in Jamaica.
There's no group of Yoruba people that carries the name Etu. Etu seems to be, according to Professor Adetugbo, there could be many. It's open for question exactly what it means. I think I agree with him that the safest interpretation is atonement. You have Yoruba speaking people, but all of them don't belong to the same what we call sub-ethnic group.
I didn't think that I was qualified to identify it. So I asked the minister who was in charge then if he would allow me to try and identify an African scholar who could come and tell us. And that is why Professor Fela Showande came here, and UNESCO funded that. And I took him to both groups. When he looked at Mrs. Brackett, who is a Nago, he said, I'm looking into the face of my grandmother. And she's tying her head in the style of the Yoruba. I said, I didn't know there was such a style. He said, oh yes, right? And the language they used, he understood it. He understood the cooking. He spoke to them about how they bring up their children and so on, and it all fitted in. I was the foreigner. And then I took him to the Etu people, and it was the same thing.
Nigerian Nobel Prize winner Wole Soyinka was able to make an important link for the Nago from Abeokuta in Westmoreland.
And I'll tell you what it means. Under the rocks, how this place come, name Abeokuta.
Abeokuta.
Why?
Is the rock.
Is it a rock? Good, that's what I wanted to know.
Is the rock. And it tells me that place where the rock is Abeokuta.
Nago is the name for a particular, just like you have the Ijesha people, they are all Yoruba speaking people. The Nago are from the south, and that is a name that the French used, and because the French had influence, the Nago people are all around near to Vida, the same port of Vida and Porto Novo, and the French had influence there. So anybody they picked up who was Yoruba speaking, they call them Nago.
Descendants of the Etu are to be found in Pell River, Caldwell, Deanstown, and Kendall in the parish of Hanover. The related Nago people, as we have heard, come from Abeokuta in Westmoreland.
Because years ago, I did some work with some people that say them call themselves the Nago people.
Yeah.
Right, and they must play in the pan just like this, but it sounds just as
more versatile.
No, it sounds heavy just like
heavy.
this.
Well, the same Nago people, them. Same people, and why you say the Nago people, them? Are the same Nago people in this?
Yes.
Who teach you to do it? Is the older head them will die. One the name Caesar Brackett, Manson Brackett, them should learn me to play.
You know, my first hint of a link between the Etu, a real link between the Etu and the Nago, was through that name, Brackett. Because when the lady that I saw in Westmoreland advised me to go up the hill and meet Nago people there, and I found myself at Mrs. Brackett's house, I immediately said, but the drummer for Etu is Mr. Brackett. Is that just by chance? So I asked and I kept my ears open, and it turned out that there was a family link. So it sounded to me then that there had to be more than just a casual link between them.
Today, Etu and Nago live like other Jamaicans except for the occasions which demand special ceremonies. These are the ceremonies held 39 or 40 nights after a death, or a dinner play to honor the ancestors or celebrate a wedding. The rituals at these ceremonies show significant African retentions in the drumming styles, dance and songs, and the preparation and distribution of food.
It was the first time I had seen anybody playing a tin drum. Right? And the fact that they were totally unconscious of an audience, because the dancers and singers related to the drum, so their backs were squarely to whoever was listening or watching, which meant that it was genuine. And then in the evening they cooked and prepared a meal, and that was very different. So I knew it was something significant. And as they spoke among themselves, they would use words that I didn't know at all. So there were too many signs of a very important cultural link that had been made.
Etu people regard themselves as very special. Outsiders may observe but are not allowed to participate in the rituals.
Busta they know Ajina. You see, you know what I mean, Ajina?
No.
Creole. Like the Busta they know Ajina. Busta one, that's it a dance in there. And we no mean fi give it. And he still left us. And we go and give him. We got for him sing we sing. We no sing none fi we sing for him. We sing for him now. Ajina o Ajina. Ajina o Ajina. Then they make figure. They broke up in.
Their dance is usually centered around individual family dance styles that come together in this collective ceremony or dance activity. So when you look at the dance, you will not see a particular step that is common to everybody necessarily. You will see one or two steps that may be, that you can describe. But when they do their individual family dances, one dancer or from a family will get up and do their dance, and the rhythm will change, and they'll be shawled and so on. Having done that, then they all dance together, and this is where you have a sense of that everybody doing a different thing. A rhythm is playing and a song is being sung, but everybody, it's like 6 or 8 different dances going on simultaneously. But that is what would account for it. So I think that is one of the most striking things the first time I saw Etu. What is going on here? What is the Etu dance?
Every one of we have one song for dance when the Etu.
Try me, my daughter.
We have the one sing when the Etu.
And where you get your song, where you get your sing, where you get your dance? Who give you it?
Who give me?
Yes, oh you know your own.
The grandparents time.
So your song was your grandparents' song?
Yes. Kambati vili sili kambati yo. Kambati vili sili kambati.
The shawling is common to everybody and to every family representative that gets up and dance. And the shawling sort of goes through three stages. There are 3 components to shawling. Shawling, as it suggests, is that a scarf, a shawl, is placed over the dancer's neck as a sign of appreciation. The whole shawling ritual then is a sign of appreciation. They always, the queen or a principal female a dancer would come in, dance a little bit with the family representative, shawl him or her, which is to put a shawl around the person's neck. Sometimes it is tied around the waist, finally, or sometimes both is done, because the queen would probably start here and other people can come in and shawl. So sometimes the person can end up having 3 shawls, 4 shawls on their neck, and sometimes, especially for the men, they will tie it around the waist. But it's all signs of appreciation that is being extended to the performer. Then, having done that, they will dip them back, hold them at the waist and dip them back. And that is supposed to give them strength, because I guess I feel in the back and in the hip is where all your strength resides, and that gives you a little oomph to get up again and dance. And then they'll raise their arms in the air, almost in salutation, say, see the winner here, you know, that kind of thing. And that comprise what would be considered the shawling ritual.
The unique use of the kerosene tin as a drum puzzles some researchers.
The use of the kerosene pan, of course, is an adaptation, and is very. I wonder why they chose the kerosene drum, though. I mean, since all the other groups here make drums, why have they used the kerosene pan?
2 drums. There is the lead male, sort of what would be the equivalent, I guess, of the kind of tenor, that more high-pitched, piercing kind of drum, which is the ashaka, and that is a kerosene pan drum. Clearly an adaptation, a New World adaptation of another kind of drum, which would be a wooden skin or whatever kind of drum.
Her father had been in Africa. It's one of our eminent legal lights. So I asked her if she had ever heard a tin drum, and she said yes. And they were heard in places that were near to tin mines. So you see, there wasn't all that much adaptation. They brought that sound, and it wasn't just the rhythm, but the sound of the tin, as distinct from the sound of the skin, with them.
The compound duple beat of the drums is also a unique feature of Etu drumming.
Very quick rhythm on the drum. That's just the technical term for it.
Where will you find it?
I have heard it in Haiti, but I haven't been everywhere, so I don't know where else it would be found. But I certainly have heard it in Haiti, and to me, it's unique in Jamaica.
With the Etu people?
Mm-hmm. Unique to the Etu.
The 6/8, which is this 6 beats to the bar kind of thing, is quite unique among the Etu people, and I am reliably informed, because I've not actually heard, I've not been able to distinguish it. It's the only other place that is to be found is among the Maroons in Jamaica. Now, as far as the Caribbean is concerned, I cannot speak to that. I would wish to make, some general assumptions that if wherever other Yoruba people are to be found, that this may not be a generic rhythm for the Yoruba people, because that is a vast set of people. And we have not even been able to pin down if it's a specific ethnic group within the Yoruba family, or if that really and truly what is represented there is a number of streams and strands of the Yoruba family that have really come together, which is probably why the importance of the family representation. And
you think that it has any effect on the shuffling of the feet in the dance?
What? That rhythm? Well, I would think so, because you can't execute too many steps per se when you are moving so quickly. So what you will find in terms of the steps itself is a very common step, is that you have this sort of brushing with a flicking or a brush off the ground. It's a flat-footed kind of shuffling movement. And you have at the end of the bar, usually on the last beat, you get a kind of brushing off the ground, sort of brushing away with the foot. And it's usually the right foot. There's a shuffle, shuffle, brush, shuffle, shuffle, brush, shuffle, 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 brush, shuffle, 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 brush. And even that goes very fast. So when your eye looks at it, you're seeing this sort of brush thing, and you're not really seeing that shuffle in between, but they're working within that timeline of a 6/8 rhythm.
Oh, combate, combate,
Food is an important part of the ceremonies, with some variation between the memorial for the dead and the dinner play to appease or seek help from the ancestors, or less often to celebrate a wedding.
Was like you're in the group and you feel like have a play. You can have a party night play. You have to have a dinner play.
For the dinner play now, when you have a dinner play, when you get a dream. And weddings.
And we know we're going to have wedding. Like the guy, they're going to marry now. And then going to get the play. We just use the same fufu. We use the fufu and the rice for the wedding.
And the okra.
Yes.
And the turn cornmeal.
Yes, yes.
But all of that go on the table too.
Yes, when we set the dinner.
And everybody get a chance to eat that too. I mean, you share that out to the people too.
Yes, after when we take out for the oku and put up.
You have to take out for the what?
The oku.
Who is the oku?
Serious question.
Who is the oku? The dead people.
So you take out for the oku?
We call it oku. We take out for the oku and we go put it up. Or put it up. We use rice every party night. Rice, rum, coffee, bread, sugar, and biz. We call it busy obi.
Which is cool or not?
We call it obi.
I want to use at the dinner play.
The dinner play now. We use rice and we use yam. The yam now we boil it and beat fufu.
Tell me about the cassava.
Get cassava and grate and dry and turn, we call it okra.
And then the turn cornmeal.
And we turn the cornmeal. That is dinner play.
So, what is the stew that you make? You make to dip in
it. We get okra and meat and boil it. We cut up the okra, put in the meat and the boil. We call it kalalu.
How you prepare it then?
You boil the meat. You boil the meat after you boil the meat.
Together.
You boil the meat after you boil the meat. You wash the rice and you put in it.
Wash it.
That is the duppy rice.
Pick it out.
The duppy rice.
You don't wash none.
No, you don't wash the duppy rice. Neither the meat nor the rice. You just
pick it out. Yes, you need to wash the meat. And you not wash the meat and you not wash the rice. You want to throw everything into it. You see? And make it boil.
Let the rice boil.
Yes, it and the meat.
And start cook the meat first.
You put on the meat, make it boil. And when you're done, and you throw the rice in it. And you make it boil. And when it boil, you share it out into a plate to everybody.
After it boil, you take out for the deceased food. And then you add a little salt to the rest, and then you share it to who wanted to eat.
They cook the other rest of food to itself.
So when you have a dinner play now, you have to start from early and make sure so by 6 o'clock dinner ready. And you set with the spirit them on. Because you have to set with the spirit them first and after you eat. Because like dinner play now, you can't cook. When you cook with the spirit and food, you can't cook it and freeze food together. You cook with the spirit and food different. When you kill the goat now, you split him in two. So when you split in two, you have to cut off piece off of this side, piece off of that side. You cut off a little piece of the liver, little piece of the maw, little piece of the kidney, every little thing. And you cut off, you cook up that. And you cook that now, that share the spirit, and you cook for the group. The group people, them different.
Was it a 40 night now, it's one pot?
Yeah, 40 night now, one pot. And cook everything together.
We cook the food and we make a little shed round the house side. And we get one table and we get a white towel and spread it. And we go put the dinner and the drinks on it. You carry the dinner go on the table and the head one for like my guy they know at the head. Him go and talk and tell him. Then they ask him to satisfy. But they no happy them a poor thing. So they beg them to satisfy with whatever they can manage. And the other family come and do the same. And when time them talk done, we go and polish it off.
Go and polish what?
We go and polish it off and beg them say them to satisfy. But they don't have anything them to satisfy.
Like when you set the food, and the family grow and the family have to talk. Because you have to tell them, say, like, say, no, you don't have it. So you try your best. So you ask him to accept it. And if nothing in the way, him can clear for you. Because most times, still, it's like I said, things are right, then you accept it, you have to have it again. And when you have it again, it costs you more. So you have to ask them to accept it.
How Etu start?
Well, take my start now. One get up and address the people, the drum man, tin man, the singers them, and get up and address them. We're going to have this little fun tonight, and we ask for a good behavior. And suppose it don't suit you, you just get up and go. And if you have anybody who you bring come there, you call them and no, leave we, and we carry on with play.
But that is what you say at the beginning.
Yes.
And you carry on to play. You have a special song that you start to play with?
Yes.
Which is the song where you start to play with?
Like you're going to start the play now, the first what we play there now. Charlie way. Imo Richarete.
I said dinner play start. You don't know what that means?
We start the dinner play. Nobody don't dance, we play 3 seam. And nobody don't dance.
What is 3 seam?
3, we play 1 first. And he stop. We stop the drum and we start another one and he play. He stop and the other one play 3. We call it 3 seam. And then we use the rum now and butler. We throw the rum in the board and the busy. And everybody get them drinks.
And then when you're having the 40 night, what is the difference?
Same way.
Same way it starts?
Yes.
Same way it go through?
Yes.
All aspects of the ceremony are ritualized, starting with the killing of the goat.
And sprinkle busy in her head, find her mole or something. Come down the street in her back and rum. And when you sprinkle it, after that you kill him. And when you kill him now, then catch the blood. And when you catch the blood, then take your mark the family. But then mix the blood with rum, you know. So after then catch it now, then throw rum in it and mix it up and then take it. Then take your mark the family.
The baptism very simply took the form of whatever animal they were killing, whether it was a goat and or chicken, but I think it would be the goat as a primary animal, which is true of the other traditionals. The larger the animal is, the more important the activity. And this is true of even in Africa. Having killed it to prepare as food, then they would preserve some of the blood and they would take it and make a sign of the cross with the blood with their finger on all the Etu people that were there helping or that would come around.
Your head get marked? Your forehead get marked?
Yeah, man.
Where? Show me where they mark.
They mark right there, so. They mark it so. And then come at the back, yeah, so. And they mark it said where.
The ceremony ends with a closing salutation.
But the play over now. The play over now. And them now we get up now, the house people, them who we go play for. We get up now and sing. And say, Master Kaka, me they tell you Mara, so me they tell you this, him put his hand on him belly and come before you the drum man and make kochi. And him go to the tin man and he make kochi. And him come to the singer them now and he make kochi. And the play over.
Other non-ceremonial foods cooked by the members of the groups still have their African names, even where adaptations have been made.
Agini, you get the corn and you beat it. And when you beat it, you put it down for a second. And you strain off it and boil the starch. And you get agini.
All right, and the cornmeal, let us say.
The cornmeal, no.
What do you call it?
Musa.
Cornmeal Musa?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me. What's the name, tell me now?
Musa.
Yeah.
You get your cornmeal, you put on your water for a fire. And when the water, the boil up, you throw the cornmeal, you make it steam and then you turn it. Take your spoon and turn it around. And after you turn it around now, that cook. And when that cook now, you get your okra, your badu kalalu, and your oil, and your cut up it. And you train your pot, you make soup. After you make your soup and you boil, you take your spoon and you cut it and you swallow it.
And we take we hand and cut it. And they say you mustn't try, but we have to try for me choke we. You can cut it and swallow it.
They tested Professor Shawande too, although they realized from his speech and everything he was genuinely Nigerian, because when they gave him the food, you're not supposed to chew it, you're supposed to just swallow it. And they said to me, him is all right, him real.
Tom.
How you make it?
You get your full beetroot and you cut one beetroot in a full peg and boil it. Boil it with the skin and the heart. After you boil the skin and the heart, you take out it and you put it down, make it cool. After it's cool now, you put it in the mortar and you beat it and make the soup sound like you make it on caramel soup.
Agusi beer like a pumpkin. All those things are. I think that
it's not melon.
Like melon. It's the thing that have seed, and you pick it and you full. You pick it and put it on, and when it's inside rotten out, you cut it and take out the seed and dry it. And you rub it. You have rubbing stone. The African them have rubbing stone, and they rub it in the mortar, rub it and the rubbing stone, and take it make soup.
It busy. Pick up the busy when it ripe and drop. And crepey, and eat it till the mouth can red. Then teeth red.
As the younger one, we couldn't stay where they are. They don't teach us anything. You understand? They don't teach us. If whatsoever we catch, like we catch a little song or anything like that, we had to hide. We had to hide to hear the talking. They have a language. I used to go with my father when any of his colleagues dead. They sing this song. Adugbereo arinako, adugbereo arinako.
Not much of the Yoruba language has been retained.
Dead and gone, you know, coming back.
Agoya, agoya, agoya. Aguleleo, agoya.
All right, what you just say?
Aguleleo.
What that mean?
Tell you how they do.
When you come to people's house, you're calling in there, you say, Ago. That's let me in, let me pass. Ago ya could be, ya means to be ready. You know, Ago ya will come out and greet me. And the Ago, he said Ago, somebody said Ago leleo. That is really Ago nile, permission to enter the house. So it could be somebody says, the visitor says agoya, or it could be, it should really be the other way around. The visitor should say agonile, can I want permission to come in? And the person says, okay, come on, ready, yes, agoya.
Ah, me jokota meji. Your money last.
All the Jokota Meji gone. Oh, no, that I must check it out. That where is money? All our money gone. Jokota Meji. There may be some. Meji is two. So I don't know if it's all my 2 pennies gone. I don't know.
Several problems of identification and origin exist for the researchers, for much seems to have been forgotten or altered.
There may be an error in trying to limit this group of people to one particular arrival or 1 or 2 particular arrivals, because the traffic in indentured labor from Africa went on from between 1841 there around to 1860 something.
66 or 65.
So you cannot, I don't think it would be safe unless you have very specific, to limit that particular Pearl River group to 1 or 2 particular shipments. There may have been people coming in afterwards. But what happens is that if the group is isolated and, you know, and sort of there's cultural infringement on them from neighboring groups, whether they are, I interviewed a lady somewhere up in there that was seen to be talking something like Mahia, language from the home. They are interacting with other groups, Congo groups, Igbo groups, and so on, Tree-speaking groups, and so on. So that they are keeping some of their ways, but some of their ways are also melting in with other people's ways. They are speaking the same language, but in slightly different ways, and doing things in slightly different ways. And over time, they have got to negotiate among themselves which particular ritual or which particular way of saying something comes out to last longer. Sometimes it's the person who has the longest memory in the thing. Or perhaps there's somebody who is a significant drummer, who imposes a drumming style. Or somebody who is a good singer at a particular stage, and then everybody try to copy that person. So that there is a mixing of cultures even among people who are speaking the same language. What has happened is that when ceremonies and so on are brought from the East Atlantic, from the old world, over to the new world. Because of the circumstances in which the people have to be practicing these rituals get, they get kind of a kind of consolidation takes place. A number of different kind of ceremonies get amalgamated into one. You understand? So I think that this is why Etu is used in answer to a dream request from the dead as a 39 or 49 night offering in memory of the dead. So you see, the same ceremony suffices now for multiple functions.
Research is also complicated by physical distance from Africa, passage of time, and limited resources.
That is one of the problems really facing research in Jamaica and the Caribbean generally, is the resources, the ability to make those cross connections with the continent, the African continent, to make contact with scholars who are working in a similar area, either within the Caribbean, in the diaspora, in North America, and more importantly, on the continent itself. Work has gone on in some of the other areas, limited in the Congo, but far more work than I know of in the Yoruba. I believe you have spoken to Maureen Warner-Lewis, and she is doing parallel work in Trinidad among the Yoruba people. So some of her work, especially linguistically, can be used as points of comparison for what is unearthed in Yoruba. But the dance and the music has to be filmed, has to be recorded for you to make comparison, or the researcher here has to go into that environment and see it. And here is the major problem. A lot of what is evidenced in the Caribbean are some of the older and oldest repository of the original African forms, which have already become transformed, which in some cases those early forms have been lost. So in Africa itself. So even in Africa, if they want to recover, to recreate, and to rediscover some of the early ancient forms, they would have to come to the Caribbean to see it. And that is one of the exciting and dilemma-based kinds of features of research in the Caribbean.
Are the distinctive Etu and Nago ceremonies in danger of disappearing? Many of the practitioners are old. Some who participated in the making of this program have since died.
And it can't stop the Etu.
Despite this assurance, there are signs that the younger people are adapting, changing, or forgetting.
The guy then come to me. Me just tell him what we use. So when he come out there last night, he tell me, he show me the things then. But you see, them young, they don't understand anything.
Yeah, the Asian people, they know things about it more and more. But it's from Darling, they know more of the group people and drop out. So most of the people, them come in with them own tradition, called since night now. In face them, they cook with spirit food different. But when I look, I see them cook everything in a one.
Which song you prefer best of the Etu songs?
Etu, Yoruba.
Tell me again, huh?
Etu, Yoruba.
Sing it for me. A little part of it.
Etu, Yoruba.
What, no?
Etu, Yoruba. I don't remember anymore.
Dance with them foot up all the time. You see, in the dance with flat. Flat them foot go down.
Yeah, but you
see, are the new people in dance?
Service your time, sir.
Yeah, new style of dance.
Them can do the dance, but they don't know the sing. And every one of them don't want it.
Perhaps some things won't change.
The children eat it?
Eh, it's nice, you know.
You can't amoche, veggie, come no, knock with me no. You can't amoche, hey, you can't amoche, hey, you can't, you are right already, but you know what you can't amoche, knock your job, you can't amoche, hey, you can't amoche, hey, you can't amoche, veggie, you can't amoche, veggie, you can't amoche, you're too fast.
New players can manage the music?
Yeah, man.
Tell me that.
Yeah, man. They manage it.
These new players?
Yeah.
Why you say that?
Yeah, because they know it. They know the play.
The African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, a division of the Institute of Jamaica, is charged with the responsibility of researching and recording information on traditional groups in Jamaica. Some work has been done, but research needs to be ongoing to document both the history of the groups and the inevitable changes as they occur over time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you hearing me? Okay, good afternoon. Welcome again. Our esteemed panelists. Just before I begin, I just wanted to, make a quick note to say that what I like about the audience, I see a lot of young people in the audience, and I want to thank Dr. Henry and ACIJ for this initiative, this film screening, because I think one of the things we forget sometimes is the way documentaries document our history, our African retention history, and how it also acts as it has been an underutilized tool for the potential in education. We often look at music, literature, even dance when we talk about African retention, but we forget to use the documentary. And I see some young ladies over here from the Michael University Teachers College. And again, I hope this encourages you that we should be using documentaries in our courses, in our classrooms, because this is also another medium for education. So I thank you to the Institute for having this screening. For the interest of time, I'm going to move over to our panelists, and I'm going to throw out some questions, just a few questions, and also have them as well, because they're very much entrenched into this research. I'm going to also have them speak to the film as well, and then I'm going to open up the questions to the audience.
I'm not a public speaker, I'm a researcher, but when I came to Jamaica 50 years ago from Africa, where I had been living and studying, I was astonished at the lack of appreciation that Jamaicans had, too many Jamaicans had, for their African heritage. And I want to tell you that the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, has done a great deal to change that. When I came to do research here, it was on the oral narratives of African heritage. And Olive Lewin, whom you saw in the film, was one of the people who said to me, I think it was just the year before, that she had discovered this village of Etu, and there might be African narratives of African language there, but she didn't know. So she sent me out there with Hazel Ramsey now Hazel Ramsey McClune. I have to tell you, Hazel was the research officer with the ACIJ-JMB for many years, and she's now a board member. I have the highest respect for her. She is just a fantastic person. Unfortunately, she could not be with us today. But Hazel and I arrived near Ferris Waterworks in Abeokuta 49 years ago. Okay, now I want you to understand, the video you just saw was made 25 years ago. So when we arrived there, all I had was a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a camera. We met Theophilus Bent, who at the age of 92 then was the oldest living Nago. He sang 2 songs. He was very frail, and he might have sung more for us, but he had had a stroke 3 years before. And as you saw, they used the kerosene pan for them, and he couldn't accompany himself because his hand was bent. So we got 2 songs, but the performance that I remember the most was one by Alfred Dolman. He had learned this song, Ile Baba Mi, from his Nago grandmother. And he took this big wooden mortar stick and he pounded it into the ground. And as he danced around, he sang Ile Baba Mi. And I tried to find the recording because I know that I gave the recording to the School of Music because I asked Vibert Seaforth, who was lecturing there, if he would transcribe the musical transcription so it could be used. Students and so on could learn, and the language. I am so sorry that we did not have the kind of equipment that we had 25 years ago. A couple years after I started that, an American anthropologist came here with what was considered mobile video. And I kid you not, his equipment fit into this huge footlocker. That's the kind of thing that one had to deal with then. So we did not get a video of Alfred Dolman, but I asked if we could get the song for you because it was so powerful. I've lived with it for 49 years in my head. And the School of Music said to me, for some internal reason at the moment, they couldn't get it to us, but I'm hoping that they will. But I gave that material to Professor Ade Tugbo, a Nigerian professor. He took those recordings back to Nigeria, and he had 3 different researchers working on it because, as you saw at the end, some of the language is very old and even no longer in use in Nigeria. So it was very interesting to see how it went. I don't know if any of you are familiar. If you're not, I'd advise you all to try. Anyone who's interested in the African heritage in Jamaica, you should get or refer to a copy of this book. It's a reader in African Jamaican music, dance, and religion. 2 German scholars came here to digitalize the music at the School of Music, and they realized there was written material about the African heritage that was not disseminated. And so they mentioned it to Ian Randall Publishers. Ian Randall Publishers, if you don't know them, they're on Herb McKinley Road, that road that goes by the National Stadium where the Bob Marley statue is. They have published over 300 books about Caribbean culture, politics, everything. I mean, I highly advise. So Christine Randall called me. The Germans went back to Europe. They left a recommendation for 10 things that could be published. And she called me and said, is it just 10? I said, no, there's so much more. And in this book, you have this fantastic work by Maureen Warner-Lewis on Kumina. You have Ken Bilby's work. You have even the revival work that Mr. Seaga did when he was a sociologist. But in there, you have the article that Olive Lewin wrote, A Man Dies, a Book is Lost. That was an article she wrote about her first visit to Abeokuta. And the year following, in 1974, I wrote an article about when Hazel and I went and recorded these Yoruba and Kikongo songs. And it has those musical transcriptions that Vibert Seaforth did, along with the translations. And then Professor Ade Tugbo did a huge article showing the research back in Nigeria on these narratives. So I wouldn't go into more details now, we don't have time, but I advise you can find that material there. I also just want to tell you that one of the women, both Alfred Doman and Theophilus Bent were gone by the time that that film was made. But one of the women you saw was Rachel Fenton. And when she sang, this is 49 years ago, at the end of every song she would say, Ewo, Ewo ya. Antoinette can tell you that would be one of the endings when you have an Orisha, and you would use it to end a song. But it was still retained in Jamaica. Well, the children, they came and they were laughing at her and making joke. And so David McLaughlin, who owned the sawmill at Waterworks, he reprimanded them. He said, this is your heritage. You must respect it. And when he died in 2001, I remembered him, and I wrote for the Gleaner for over 40 years. I always tried to write positive articles. So I wrote an article about celebrating those who care. And I wrote about this experience in Abeokuta, and also David McLaughlin. And apparently it came out just at the time of his funeral. His daughter took the article to show the pastor, thinking that he would just tell them about it. And instead, he read the whole article out. And this is the part I like. Afterwards, one of the neighbors came up to her and said, if I'd realized your father was so important, I would have come to visit more often. But one of the reasons that you don't, I just want to tell you one more thing here. Oh yes, I would also tell you that one of the reasons that it's harder to retrieve some of these is because the children were, I was working on the narratives, and I never found any narrative in an African language. But this lady, Dinah Henry, who's on the cover of the book that Maxine helped get published to celebrate this 21st anniversary of Jamaica's independence, she remembered, she was 76 when I met her 50 years ago. She had known African people. And she said, as children, the Africans would chase them away. They were very secretive. And they said the same thing there. The Nago people, another scholar whose work is very, very interesting, and I'm sure Monica knows about it, I'm almost finished, is Yeri Yeri Congo. This was a Guyanese scholar, alas Congo. And she said the Nago people waited until their children were old enough to appreciate before they would teach them. I do want to tell you one more thing, but I will come back to that at the end. So I know you want to have some question and answers and so forth.
Question.
I have a little comment.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Most of the songs that you heard, I don't want it to just go over your head. I want you to be aware, the first song that she was singing, it was obvious she was singing to the Orisha Shango. And then the marks on the face that the man said that grandma have the crop on her face. In Yoruba, they are called the ilats. When I was initiated, there were marks on my face as well. It's a sign of where you belong. And the 3 marks says you now belong to the Yoruba people or the Yoruba space. Etu. Anybody I asked said the same thing that Dr. Maureen Woolley said, but there is a set of people called Etu. And sometimes things go across the ocean and do change you too. I don't know. And the last thing is, I'm very proud to say that one of my initiations happened in Ogun State, and Abeokuta is in Ogun State in Africa. Every word that she used, Oko means dead. And I sat and I listened and I said to myself, tears came to my eyes, because there are not people, obviously, that are financially wealthy, but there are people rich with identity specificity. They don't have no crisis. There are people who know where they came from, who remember their ancestors, and were doing rituals. And when they said they have to ask the ancestors if they will accept it, they didn't have the memory of how to get the answer. But there is a way to throw the same oak bee that she said, kola nut, and you get the answer whether yes, I accept it, or no, I don't accept it. So I just want to say ma fede fun mo dupe, which is thank you very much to the researchers who did the work, and for us to remember that we are not the first researchers. That's the thing. And for the teachers to remember, you can't teach your children Christianity alone. You have to teach them their history, because it's because of our ancestors you get to become teacher. If they didn't fight for us to read and write, you couldn't even become a teacher.
Thank you. That's your mic. Go ahead, Professor Warner Lewis, and I have a question after that.
I'll just make one or two comments coming out of the film. One, the word Etuu. When I did the recording, I was a little confused about exactly what it meant. But I think it means appeasement. Now, now there's a ceremony that is practiced in the Eastern Caribbean among some of the African descendant people. And that festival, that feast or ritual is called Saraka. Now, Saraka is the same thing as the Etuu. Etuu.
Yeah.
And
Etuu, we know.
It's a ritual that is done sometimes on an annual basis in the Eastern Caribbean by certain families that retain their African heritage. And they will have it now, and maybe you who go to the ceremony may not know that it is really a religious ceremony that is being, kept up. Because you go and you feast and you dance and so on. They have done their rituals already, and that's the Saraka, where they prepare the food, as the Etu people said. They prepare food, African-type food, and there are very good descriptions of how you get the food in this publication by the ACIJ. And I'm sure that copies are still available. African continuities in the Professor Ade Tugbo, who was here, who came to research the Yoruba people in Jamaica. He has an article in this collection, and he has very detailed descriptions of the various foods, agidi, egusi, and so on and so on. So you prepare all of that, but you don't put salt in the food for the ancestors. That is why one of the people said you cook it separately. You can put a little salt in the food for the group, the living, but for the dead, for the oku, you without salt. And it's very interesting that the Rastas have preserved this identification of saltless food with spiritual strength and energy. The dead know more than the living.
Thank you, Prof.
The other thing that I wanted to comment on was the kerosene, the use of the kerosene pan as a drum. Though I noticed in some of the thing that there was goatskin drum as well. But I think that what they were trying to do was to recapture the sound that is made by what the Yoruba call the shekere, which is a shaker, a maracas, yes. Because this is the original instrument, the shekere. And it's a gourd, like a pumpkin or a melon gourd, grows on the ground. And you can get some very big melons and so on. And then they dry it. It's like what the calabash in the Caribbean use. And then they put this beautiful netting thing, like a fishnet around the gourd, and then they weave in either cowrie shells or seeds of some kind, and the net is made loose. So when you shake it, you hold it by the thing, and it makes this big clattering sound, clatter, clatter. And I think that was the sound that the Etu people realized that they could get a sound similar to this kind of effect by using the kerosene pan to recreate that sound. And just to say that, the kola nut that they spoke of, which is called busy here generally. Busy is another African word which means, which comes from the Dahomey area. It's an Ewe word from that area, busy. But the Yoruba call the kola nut obi. So when they talk about the obi seed and so on, that's so lots of little things.
Much thanks. All right. Before I begin, just very quickly, I have a question. When I saw the kerosene tin, I heard the steel pan, so I thought it was another African, you know how Africans are always repurposing material? So I thought perhaps maybe that had some connection to the steel pan, but maybe I'm off, Prof, over here.
My understanding of the steel pan, as you would realize, I'm originally from Trinidad.
Yes, that's why I'm bringing it to you.
Yes. The steel pan gives a different kind of sound, and to my mind is a version of the xylophone, which is common particularly in the Senegambian areas. I brought my map or one of my maps of Africa here. So there's an African connection with the.
No, it's caught up sometime. Yes. Oh, stretch it out here.
Oh. Yes, there's a connection between the steel pan and an African origin, in a sense, in that they were using the same technique as you use with a xylophone. And there are different sizes of xylophone, of course, in various parts of Africa. The xylophones come from this area, the Senegambian area. The Yoruba are from this area, just before you begin to take the curve down into Central Africa. So, but as I say, it gives a different kind of sound, and then you use the steel pan uses this. They use a stick, a straight stick, but they put rubber around the tip, so you get a muted sound, so you don't get a clatter.
Yes.
Which is what you get with the hand on the kerosene drum.
Much thanks. I'm glad you also took out the map, because I know our young people, we probably don't see maps of, with Africa, right? We're not really seeing it often. And this is going to go to my next question for anyone on the panel. I know Nigeria. We looked at the Etu coming from Nigeria. But I'm aware there was a group also in Togo
and Benin.
and also Benin and Niger, the Kwa. So I was wondering if any of those group were also a part of the Nigerian mix, or they just came from Nigeria.
When we talk about it and we sound like they're far apart. One of them is an hour and a half away from the other.
I know they're not
and the other one is
but
4 hours. So,
yeah.
you know, at one time there were no borders and there were not plenty names. So now there's plenty names, but they're close enough. It's like going to Mobile and Spanish Town. I don't know about the Niger part.
Yes,
but they're very close. Those are the Yoruba people. Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. And now you said Nigeria.
Niger, yes, they were the Kwa, KWA Kwa as well.
The Kwa is a wide. Kwa embraces the languages of a number of West African peoples, so it's a very generalized term. But within that, you have many different kinds of people, and again, among the Yoruba themselves, who come from, as I say, the southwestern part of Nigeria, going into Togo and also into what is called now the Republic of Benin. Among the Yoruba, there are many subgroups. So the Nago are one of the subgroups, again from the southerly Nago. And so the French use that term, taking off the A, and just use Nago. But you have also the Oyo, who are the most important politically. In that's a center of their empire, the Oyo people. And you also have the Ijesha people, or Jesha. And there was a Jesha group, I understand, who lived in Mount Albion in St. Mary, and who had their own ceremonies, particularly at New Year's time. They would visit the graves of their dead relatives, and they'd cook rice and so on and so forth. This girl, Antoinette Horton, Jesha people, they, as I say, they are one of the Yoruba groups.
Much thanks.
When you're speaking about, sorry.
Dinky Mini, I'm not too sure exactly where Dinky Mini comes from. I think I have something on it in my book on Central Africa, but I'm not sure. There's so many little
when you're speaking about Yoruba, you're speaking about geographic locations, but you often also speak about the spirituality. And if you go to Ghana, where they practice Akan, and where they speak about the Busum, and which are ancestors, they still have to receive orishas from the Yoruba people. So everything is not just the practice of Yoruba is not just the geographic locations or the people who speak Yoruba, because many people who speak Yoruba sometimes don't practice Yoruba. So you don't get confused, I'm trying to explain. So you will find that the Akan people, to receive orishas like Shango and Oya that they were singing about, and it amazed me that they were singing about Oya because the ritual was for the dead. And Oya is who lives at the graveyard, takes care of the graveyard. She's the wind, she's a lot of things. So she's the wind. But the way that it all connects in the film relative to the orishas was very striking for me. What they were singing to. So the geographic locations mean they speak Yoruba. It doesn't mean they practice Yoruba. That's something totally different.
Much thanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the session. I thought, not wrap up the session because I'm going to allow the audience to speak. I'm really glad that we were able to bring out the presence of Nigeria, because I know many of us, when we talk about Jamaica particularly, we tend to focus on the Ashanti and Ghana and that influence and so on, and we're not, as Prof and Dr. Stein and Professor Warner Lewis did, they were able to really use a map to show that these were multiple places that enslaved Africans, how they got here. They didn't just come from one central point. So I'll take a few questions, and I know the young people here must be, so much must be going through your mind, right? Mind-boggling.
Right now we're on African time.
Well, we
time,
have been on
time.
African time since the start, right? The fact that we were late, I would say that's African time. And we're Africans, right? Essentially. All right, so I guess I have to come over or... No, I have a mic. You want... Oh, okay. Oh, yes, you have a mic. I'll help you. Okay, you should be working. I'll help you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon McKenzie, ENIFA. Just wanted to point out that it's interesting. So we talk about the Etuu people. When someone passes away in the Yoruba system, we do an Etutu, and it's often, we send the person so that they can join the ancestral world. So I just thought, it just slapped me in the face. I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about the ancestors and doing ancestral work. And it's really, the connection is so profound.
Thank you for that comment. Are there any questions?
It's important to appease the ancestors so that they don't trouble you negatively. The living can live peaceably if the ancestors are also at peace.
Good day, everyone, especially the students. I'm glad to see them here. I'm a teacher, been for years upon years. And I want to ask this. Is it possible that that kerosene tin that they were playing was as a result of the banning of drums? Because between 1834 and 1838, when Brookings and Jankunu had a physical presence and was marching through the streets, the colonial authorities responded by banning the drum because they thought that this was too noisy and whatever. I'm also asking, is it also possible that the lack of sharing the information with the young ones was also as a result of this horrible, traumatic colonial space that Jamaica was? A lot of students don't realize how horrible and how violent that this colonial space was, that served to literally suffocate the culture of Africans who were here. So let me backtrack. Is it possible that that tin that was played was literally just a substitute, or I'm asking?
I would say the kerosene pan would make it made its own loud noise. No, this business about banning drums. Listen, during the long colonial period, they had to pass laws over and over and over again against drums and things like that. The fact that they had to repeat these laws means that the laws were not effective, they were not working. So they passed laws to ban drums, and they would have inconvenienced some people on some occasions, but it did not mean that drums were totally, banned from the environment. People still did drums and did jankunu. I want to say that the environment in Jamaica with the Protestant missionaries were dead set against well, drums, but also jonkonu. Whereas in all other parts of the Caribbean, where African religions met with Catholic religion, the Catholic religion, there was able to be, the Africans were able to blend their deities with the Catholic saints and make them one as far as they're concerned. But the Protestant missionaries wanted to wipe out jonkonu, and they were very insistent. And that is why in other parts of the Caribbean, nowadays you have jonkonu has morphed, has changed into carnivals of different types. Carnivals either at Christmas time or at Emancipation time or at pre-Lenten, the Catholic thing. The pre-Lenten is when you have this fair where we must have a fete. This is European idea, that you must have a fete, a party, a celebration before you go into the abstinence of Lent. So in other parts of the Caribbean, like in Bahamas, St. Kitts, St. Nevis, all these places, Trinidad, Barbados has crop over, Kadumen, and so on. You have the African festivals morphing and changing into carnival celebrations. But in Jamaica, the jonkonu is now trying to make a little comeback because it has been so impacted by the colonial authorities and the Protestant missionaries. The Catholics didn't come into Jamaica until the 19th century. And whereas in Jamaica, slavery was going on from the 17th century. So that, they had a long time to influence the behavior of people.
I think that is why the dominant religion right now in Cuba is Santeria, which is Yoruba, sympathized with the Catholic religion. So St. Patrick, those names is an Orisha. Because the Catholic allowed the practice.
Thank you. Before I go to your question, just very quickly, Professor Warner Lewis, I really appreciate your addition where you are showing the young people the way in which popular culture absorbs this African retention, because oftentimes, we see it in our music, the soca, even dancehall, some of the dances. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. So. Yes, there's an artist that calls himself Shango. So I'm really glad, for young people to be able to be making these connections. These things are not just in isolation. So you see where the culture is morphing to. So you see it within the popular cultural form, because we sometimes lose young people because they think, oh, that's an old time something, that's a long time. But yet you're still able to make that connection. So thank you very much for bringing in, both of you, bringing that point. Our last question, we're going to go over. And actually, before this last question, we have to get a question from a student. So this won't be our last question. We'll go to you, and then we'll go to our student. Or would you mind the student going before you? Because this is about the students and about learning. Go ahead. Could someone share a mic with her, please?
What is the purpose of the ancestors entering school? The purpose of the food is not the food itself. On it now, work. Hello, the pretty one. The food itself is really the energy that comes through the food. Because people stand up there waiting for some ancestor to come pick up the plate and eat it. No. It's the energy that's, and that thin line which is called the Kalunga space, that space, you know, I just used the word, which is also the name of God in some parts of Africa. But is that in the cosmogram of Kumina, you see that line. That line from when you left the earth and where you are traveling to where you are going to go after you pass on. That process and that thin line between this world and what is referred to as the spirit world, that if you are in a consciousness, a Eurocentric consciousness, you said that, no go so. But me showed it up with them is right here now looking at us, the spirits. The positive. So it's the energy and also the memory, the appreciation that I had a mother who passed on, who took care of me, who sent me to school, who has now passed on. It is my responsibility to remember her. But when the Chinese go to the graveyard and put down food one day every year, which is called Gazang Day, nobody says anything is wrong with that. Nobody. And these Chinese people are doing it everywhere in the world on the same day. They all go to the graveyard, they put down food, they put down incense. I have to go because my grandfather was from Guangdong, China. So I have to go. But when we put our little table and the woman, they said she put a piece of, and put down the food, all of a sudden is obia. And it is terrible. And the people who are the most prejudiced against it is black people. Black people against black people is the worst. You shouldn't have asked me that question.
I think could I say something quickly about that offering of food? Yes, about that offering of food. In all cultures, all over the world, when people want to get together, whether it is for a birthday, whatever, there is always food. Food is they gather around food. Some of you might be offended by what I'm going to say now, but please take it, think about it. I am an Anglican. I'm a Christian, I'm an Anglican. I go on Sundays and receive Holy Communion. Why is there communion? Why did Jesus have the Last Supper? It is again this sharing. When societies want to say, we are together, we are sharing family, we are sharing whatever, we are sharing success at, you got a job or whatever, you've passed an examination, whatever. There is food that is, yes, is one of a marker of communion, of oneness, of togetherness. So the fact that the Etu people and the Nago people give food, and the Orisha and the Saraka people and so on give food. The food is not really physically eaten by the people that is put forth. It is a marker of communion with those who have gone before. The food is, I think in some cases it is buried. Sometimes it might be eaten by some animals or a bird or whatever it is. Yes. So.
Okay. Yes.
This gentleman wants to say something.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Again, the complexity of colonization, right? In terms of this inferior complex. So it's more than just about black people against black people. It's a mentality that we've been indoctrinated to think inferior of ourselves. So we have to just, as Bob Marley would say, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. And you're the last person. I know you want to say something.
Yes.
And go ahead and we'll wrap up to the...
Yes, so now in Jamaica, 9 night, my name is Patrick Earl. I am the dance specialist at JCDC. So my observation is the face of 9 night has changed in Jamaica, right? It is now a dancehall practice, you know, where that expression is evident. But guess what? There is a research, there is an immersion, there is a good practice that is happening. So you would see members of the community, they will light candles right, on the right and on the left, towards the dead yard. They are doing it, but they don't know why. I'm going to ask the panelists to just articulate about it, since we're on YouTube and all of them places there, just for us to understand what we're doing. Because, to be honest, some of us are doing the African retention, practicing it, but we don't know the why. So just articulate on that one for me, please.
Very quickly, because we're going to wrap up, and we have to wrap up because of time.
I don't know the complete answer. I don't like to answer Tim, but I know one part of the answer. And it came from Queenie, Imogene Kennedy. She said that the candles was to cleanse the people as they were walking towards the event. She also put a candle in the when you're walking through the gate, you had to step over the candle. And for her, the candle is also because light. The light, the energy of light towards what the ritualistic space that you're going to. But she was focused on the cleansing. So I'm sure there are other answers for it as well, because I don't know the full answer.
Thank you.
Can I just
Yes,
finish
very
on-
quickly.
Is this on now?
Yeah, go.
This is on. You can hear me? Yes. Okay, great. This, I want to commend again the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, for having created this video and the series that will follow. It is so important to have preserved this. Because I was working with narratives and not songs, that book that we worked on with the Institute of Jamaica Publications, the narratives, we made a television film that was put into a video, and then I put 2 different sets of the narratives onto audio cassettes so that the material could be disseminated in the schools and used, and it was put on Amazon so that people overseas, Jamaicans and scholars, in fact the material was used in Stanford and Harvard, and even Professor Mervyn Allain used it at the University of Kansas to teach Jamaican Creole in his linguistics. So the ACIJJMB, you not only research the material, you have to preserve it, and then you have to disseminate it. And what happened 2 years ago, nobody knows, but I'm telling you now, it was so shocking. Amazon wrote just one of the CDs of the stories, the folk stories. They wrote to say they could not continue to have it because it was pornographic. I said, what? I had a correspondence back and forth with Amazon. Finally, I had to literally get the U.S. Embassy here to write, and they had to take it to the State Department, and the State Department had to deal with Amazon. It turned out, we assumed that they were using artificial intelligence, these logarithms, to go through what the material that they were vetting, and they see Jamaica and oral, and they assume it's sex. And so they can you imagine? And they had to get a person to actually listen to the material, and then they wrote a letter of apology, and it's available again. But what I'm saying with the ACIJ, your material is so important. 25 years ago this was made. I hope that more recent things, but you will remember this, because 25 years from now you won't have this. But you not only have to collect it, you have to preserve it, you have to disseminate it, and then you have to protect it. So I really commend the ACIJJMB. They've done fantastic work.
Yes. And on that note, I would like to call on Rochelle Clark, who's going to do the vote of thanks, because Dr. Stein has made me know that all this talk about food has made her hungry. And I'm sure I did. So Rochelle Clark, if you can come forward to do the vote of thanks. And thank you very much, everyone.
This lady is a scholar that has done so much work for us in the Caribbean that we should always, always give thanks and praise.
What is that? I don't know what that is.